So, I'm trying to start some new series on my channel, like a television channel, attempting to get people to watch them after their old shows end, and end up struggling through a few years of garbage until they find something that works. I mean, hopefully that's not how it goes. My real purpose with this whole thing is that I have a lot of ideas for videos on the weekends. Those are my bigger videos that might do pretty well. And my midweek videos, well, I just want to make those more some fun video game related things, because I couldn't come up with anything else to do. And by fun, I don't really mean fun for you, because we all know that's not happening anywhere near this channel. I mean fun for me, because they're really dumb, and that makes me entertained. I mean, I just kind of ran out of smaller stuff to talk about with the whole pre-E3 news drought. Besides stuff I wanted to make a little bigger. Stuff like my Take This With a Grain of Salt video, which nobody asked for and nobody wanted, is what I'll mainly be trying out before E3. And hopefully they won't all be too terrible. And this here series pilot is a little thing I like to call Flaw Finder. It's where I take a game unanimously praised as a masterpiece, like Zelda Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey, and I'll try to poke as many holes in its quality as I can. I really sound like a killjoy when I say it out loud, but I have to come up with something for this slot, and my other idea is way weirder than this, so at this point I'm sticking with this. Hello all 296 of you, I'm Redkwan, and this video is Flaw Finder Zelda Breath of the Wild. So let's start off with the world. Oh, the world. Everybody loves the world in Breath of the Wild, but is it really all that good? Let's take a look at Exhibit A, shall we? Where's the variety here? There really isn't much variety at all, to be perfectly honest. Now, I know there are some areas with water and some with sand or lava or forest, but I would say at least 50% of the world looks pretty much like a grassy field. I'm not taking away from the accomplishments of the game, and this is a huge world. You can't expect everything to be completely unique in every location. But I get so tired of grass everywhere. Variety is the spice of life, as some person said at some point, so if you don't like jalapenos, you might like Zelda, because it doesn't have much world variety. Did I just make that a joke? Oh wow, this channel's really going downhill. And what about the enemies? They're just as bland and overused. And so are the designs for the divine beasts and the shrines and the bosses. This game really doesn't have much variety in it at all. And not only is the world pretty much the same everywhere in terms of looks, it's the same everywhere in terms of gameplay too. Every place you go is running, climbing, and occasionally swinging your sword around like a madman. The different areas don't feel like different parts of the game, and they look like different little pockets of the same thing. The only locations where you play the game any differently are just based on your vehicle, like a boat or a sand seal. But you'll get bored of that within like a minute. The world is massive, but every location feels like a slight variation on the same place. The mistake here is that having a huge world means nothing if the whole place feels the same. But what about those divine beasts? Perfect dungeon replacements, right? No, this will not do. The divine beasts are pretty poor excuses for dungeons. They aren't exactly bad, but they don't do a very good job of being like the old dungeons. I'm not gonna sit here and be the guy who tells you that just because they've done dungeons this way for so long means that changing things is inherently wrong. Just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it's the only option. But why isn't Link wearing green? It's tradition! No, but in all seriousness, the reason the divine beasts don't work isn't because there isn't any other good way to do the main location objectives like dungeons. There could be plenty of different ways to do that thing. A lot of them might even work better than dungeons. But the divine beasts, they do not. The problem is that the divine beasts don't really have anything terribly interesting to do. You walk around, find ways to get to several terminals, then fight the big red guy at the end. That's about it. And nothing you do in there is actually anything you haven't done already. It's just solving a few mini puzzles like in shrines, and fighting like in everywhere. This really just goes back to the variety thing, I guess. They all look the same, they all feel the same, and everything you do inside them is just stuff you've been doing in the world and in shrines for hours at that point. But while those are the main things, Flaw Finder is about more than just complaining for a while. Flaw Finder is about digging deeper than that, and uncovering some really minuscule and nitpicky stuff that probably doesn't matter nearly as much as I'm making it sound. Such as the horse riding. I don't know how, but Nintendo still doesn't seem to be able to get the horses to feel right. The sand seals feel fine, the boats seem pretty good, but the horses, the main mode of transport other than foot, a huge highlight of the game, never seem to obey you and are way too hard to control. Maybe I'm just bad at the game, but my horses always end up walking onto a pile of rocks. Like, dude, this horse is not very good at being a horse if it just walks onto a mounds of stones and just walks in circles up there. And then there's the story. In a way, it's cool how they did it, but then it's also annoying that you'll probably get the story out of order. They sort of combat that by making it seeable in any order, but then that just makes the story feel less connected. And then there's that if you want to see the full story, you'll have to search around for a long time. And I just decided not to deal with that lifestyle, because I'm not pouring 250 hours into a game to get every Korok seed before I decide to fight Ganon. And does anyone else get super mad when a Bokoblin kills you with a stick and you die? And it's just like him standing over you with his hitting pose like, yeah, I just took out the hero of this game. I'm pretty much a big deal. That makes me pretty mad. There aren't any real unique items, there aren't enough villages to explore that aren't piles of rubble, and one of the side quests is to find some guy 100 crickets, which sounds like it could be the worst experience of my life. So what can you take away from this episode of Flaw Finder? Probably that I'm a negative person, who takes out his anger on the poor folks at Nintendo, who made what a lot of people would say is the best game of last year. No hard feelings, Nintendo. This is Flaw Finder. This is my job. You wouldn't be here today if you didn't make something good enough for me to find bad stuff in it. You know what I mean. Well, what do you think about Zelda Breath of the Wild? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate how much you hate the series, with 1 being wow, that was some real terrible stuff, and 10 being you basically died because of the enormous pain it caused you to watch it? I think a 7 would be pretty successful. I'd probably be alright with an 8 too. Anyways, I'm Redkwan, thank you all for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all later. Goodbye.